would love to start this conversation out with you just telling us who you are and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, so Heath Ackley. I've been in the corporate world my entire life. I actually started working at Nationwide when I was still 17 years old. Went to Ohio State, worked full-time the whole time, didn't have the money to go otherwise. So I was at Nationwide, got hired on full-time into the investments group. And you think about a career, the way I started out my life was pretty low income. I never had to worry about where a meal would come from, but I was never had to do extras. Like the 3 vacations in my life were Lake Erie, Myrtle Beach, and we went to Disney after my dad died. Like those were it, right? So like travel wasn't really a thing. It was like never extras. And I remember thinking like, well, I don't want that like long term. And you're gonna get a kick out of this. I literally picked up the Fortune magazine and it was like richest people, and I'm like, what do they all do? And so I'm like, okay, investing, tech. Got it. And so I went to Ohio State with the plan of like economics, political science, computer science. Like I had all 3 of those at the same time going, and went to Nationwide into the investments group before I even graduated college. So I had to sort my path through that. Got into the commercial real estate group, learned a ton. But there's something interesting. When you're really young and you're kind of first starting out, you don't know what a mentor looks like. You don't know what learning at work looks like. You know what learning at school looks like. And you don't really know how to spot the person who's going to help you like sort of get along your career path. And what I later realized was it was always like small moments. It's like these like little subtle things that people would do. Like, hey, you want to go grab lunch with us? Always say yes. It doesn't matter. Hey, we have this project. Say yes. It doesn't. Like early on, just say yes to everything. There's no reason to be like, I'm really pretty busy. I don't know if this is going to work. My favorite story, a guy named Bill Lonergan. I worked for him for the longest time. And he came to me on a Friday. It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he's like, hey, we need to get this ready for a presentation on Monday at like 9 a.m. I'm like, dude, it's 4 o'clock on Friday, man. And I said something to that effect to him. And he has these really big hands, really tall guy. And he goes, well, there's Saturday, and there's Sunday, plenty of time to get this done, right? Which, Nationwide, like working weekends wasn't a super standard thing, to which his point was sort of like, whatever, we don't do this very often, just buck up, go do it. But it was all the small stuff that sort of comes from those engagements that you like later reflect on and go, oh, got it. Like that was the moment where they're sort of testing your commitment to whatever it is that they're doing, or their plan to stretch you and develop you and see kind of what you're made of. I failed most of those tests early in my life. I just didn't understand. It wasn't too much later that I got really, really hungry and wanted it. And I think part of that's getting married, having kids. It like elevates your level of like desire. Like I don't need a ton of money to live a simple like single guy life. But when you have 4 kids and a wife, it doesn't work outside the house. That math changes pretty fast. So your motivations change. And so I think that's a big part of it. But it's the transition in life that's most interesting is going from being a mentee to being a mentor. And it happens very slowly and then very suddenly.
Right.
And you don't even realize it's happened until you're like, now your title has executive in it. Now your title has a C in the front of it. And people look at you differently and think you know all the answers. And the reality is you're still the same bozo as before. You just had a few things go wrong and you've learned from those, hopefully, or you had a few things go right and hopefully you've appreciated the learnings from that too. I think those are sort of like the things that have shaped my career. So from Nationwide Investments to Nationwide's bank, I ran residential lending for them for a handful of years. We shut the bank down. I was asked to go to Wells Fargo by a few people trying to recruit me. And they said, hey, we've run into a lot of trouble at our bank. We need help kind of getting out of this regulatory jail that we've been put in. You have a lot of experience in the business. Could you come help stand that up? I could have not been less interested in doing that. But 6.5 years later, I'm done at Wells, right? So I did not expect to go there, number one. Number two, learned a ton there and probably developed my leadership philosophy there. I got some lessons along the way before I ever left Nationwide, but it's a different environment when everybody's in a pressure cooker. You have an asset cap, you can't grow, you can't give out bonuses the same way, you're cutting business lines to try to save the broader franchise. Like that takes a level of vision and understanding to be able to convey to others, why are we doing the things that we're doing that are very painful? 13-hour days were extremely standard for me. I've kind of forgotten that. My wife reminds me often, like, remember, like, you were working like every weekend and like super long days, and then COVID hit and it's all hands on deck, like 14, 15-hour days, because we were trying to keep the thing afloat and keep all these businesses operating that we're supporting, from a banking relationship perspective. It was wild. So I've said a lot to say mentorship to me, my career, my background, it was this very slow process that eventually one day the lever flipped and you realize, wow, like I'm more of a mentor to others than I'm a mentee myself.
So what are you doing now? So you left Wells?
Left Wells
recently?
Yeah. So my last day there was October 17th. So recent enough, 3 months ago.
And so I know what you're doing now a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you're doing?
Yeah, so kind of go back to the roots. Commercial real estate was the background. We were starting to really lean into the AI space at Wells. And we really started thinking, like, where are the places where automation, streamlining would be like the holy grail of savings? And I think a lot of misnomer out there with AI is it's like, oh, it's just like machine learning and robotic process automation. No, it's not that. This is not the stuff from 20 years ago. It's so far beyond even what I expected when we started New All AI, which is to really start underwriting as a service using AI. Obviously, we're giving it some guidance. We're giving it some nurture. You're helping the large language model improve. We keep the human in the loop. We're validating things as they come through, reviewing things periodically. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is leverage AI to do two things: speed up the process to underwrite an opportunity, or two, help you kind of craft your business plan for a real estate deal. So certain multifamily projects, you go into it, it's already brand new construction, Class A, fully leased, it's got the best amenities, and you're just basically going to operate that thing. You're going to keep running it as it is. Other stuff you buy in great markets, it's infill, it's super nice area, but maybe it's a little bit sleepy. Maybe it's 20 years old. It needs a little bit of capital investment. Maybe the amenities aren't that great. Maybe there's no pool, there's no gym. The things just could be kind of freshened up. Maybe need some new landscaping, need to resurface some parking lots to really be able to demand the best rents and give people really what they're looking for in the market. It is shocking how much AI can help you understand how that property is performing relative to the peer set in local vicinity. And that could be like, hey, you're already at the top. You want to go further away from everybody else. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. If you've identified a certain market, it's going to be like the next place to be. Yeah, maybe you want to go do that. Other places might be say, hey, like this is maybe a good investment where they've not managed rents effectively. Let's bring rents up to match where the market is. But tenants expect something in return, right?
Totally.
We're going to freshen things up. So this is really about how do we help buyers, owners, operators expedite, speed up the process to underwrite a deal. Because today, it takes you 3 to 4 hours to comb through financial statements, a rent roll, just to understand what you have. Then you got to call somebody that's a bank, say, hey, what's financing look like? What are terms these days? Like, what are rates looking like for a project like this in this market? And then you got to get the terms of the seller, right? Everyone thinks what they own is worth so much, and it's great. It's the best thing ever. And there's like got to be this like coming to terms with like, where are we? And 3 years ago, it was very easy because rates had stayed low for a long time. We were kind of all aligned. Then rates ran up really fast. Well, that changes the math for a buyer relative to what it looks like for a potential seller. So we may have less transaction volume for a little while, but what we're missing in the market is sort of price discovery. Like, what's this thing worth? It's easy with stocks. Like there's a bid and ask and it's constantly trading. There's thousands and thousands of shares trade every day. That is not the case with commercial real estate. One, it doesn't trade every day. It's super slow when it does trade. It's a multi-week, month process to find, identify, agree upon a price, transact, fund, and actually move on that deal. You think about residential, it's the same. Might like probably multiply by 2 or 3 just to do all the diligence required. So we're trying to use AI to make that a way smarter process, way more efficient.
That's cool. Tell me about maybe throughout your career, you mentioned a couple of stories with a nationwide guy kicking your ass into working the weekend. Some other details that you gave. What's the best advice that you've ever received?
Yeah, I'm actually going to give you two. There's not one, there's two. One was, if you find that you're the smartest person in a room, get up and leave that room. That's an old adage, right? It's been around a long time. But I think the way I heard it is a little bit differently, which is, who are you learning from? Right? Because you can probably learn 80% of what somebody knows if you're paying close attention within a handful of like weeks or months of working with somebody. But to learn the nuance of what they know, that takes much longer. So you can work with some super smart people. So at Nationwide, I work with some of the smartest folks in the investments group. And quite frankly, you don't even realize how talented they are sometimes until you leave those walls. It sometimes takes that, like looking back, like, oh man, I probably didn't fully appreciate how much they were teaching me and how good they really are. That's one thing. The other thing I learned is ask people what their challenges are. And the exercise is this magic wand exercise. So when I first went to the Nationwide Bank, this guy, Kai, was there, and Kai would go around the room at the end of every meeting and ask every person, get a magic wand, you could wave it, what would we do different? And you would hear things that you have no way of knowing as the leader of a group without asking that question. Oh, this process is such a nightmare, or like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this or that. And so what we would do at the very end as a leadership team is we'd take all those magic wand submissions and we'd start assigning them out. Like, hey, who can solve these problems? We'd take some on ourselves, we'd assign others to other people, and our job was to resolve these magic wand challenges. And once we resolved yours, then we give you a new magic wand. And so it incentivized people to give you realistic things that could be solved. It wasn't a gripe session. It was like, hey, what can we be doing better within our business? And I found that's probably the tool I use the most when leading a team or managing through activities. It's that activity.
I love it. What's the worst advice you've ever heard or been given?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of discount the bad advice pretty quickly. You can kind of tell. I think the idea that you should just stay in one place and climb to the top. And I'll give you a couple reasons why that's bad. There's no certainty at any given place for a variety of reasons, right? That franchise may not exist. You may run into the wrong manager at some point. You may step on a landmine at some point. There's always political challenges by doing that. And I think there's sort of like a natural fear of the unknown. Well, what if I leave? What if you do leave? There's like 60,000 companies you can go work for. It's like not a big deal. But I think we get really enamored with that. The biggest challenge is, for me, and this is coming from a guy who was at Nationwide for 14 years, at Wells for 6.5, is your network becomes very much inside the walls of one or two places. And if you're me, I would work those crazy 13-hour days. I would then go home to my 4 kids and wife and be like super focused on what they have going on. And so I wasn't allocating any time to network outside those walls or to go connect with friends or really see what else people are up to. And so I would say that you should spend some time with people outside of your company, just see what they're up to, checking in. And not for selfish reasons. How can you help them? It's sort of the key element that I would offer up.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. One of my favorite questions to ask people like you, mentors that we have come to our events, and people in these great communities is, what would you tell yourself 20 years ago today? Is there anything that you were doing that you're like, damn, I really wish I wasn't doing that back then, or things that advice that you
I think I was overly fixated on how much money I could make, not on how much value I could create. Right? It was like, oh man, I really want to maximize my own earnings, or chasing get rich quick ideas versus like, hey, let's find something that's really interesting and build and enjoy the process of building, because within that the rewards start to come anyway, and it's just way more fun to build with people, especially people you like being around. That's a very rewarding experience.
100%.
And I think a lot of times, like these solo entrepreneurs, like they can do very well financially, but then they wake up one day like, okay, I have money now, but I don't have depth of relationship or friendship or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big loss, and something I was probably overly focused on when I was young.
Totally. What advice do you have for the generation of leaders that are coming up right now? They've got stereotypes, they've got ways about life that they go about that are different from your generation. Is there any advice that you have for them? Any things that you want to see more of?
I think what's interesting, the wave of AI is very compelling for young folks. It's also dangerous for young folks, because you hear about a lot of these firms are deploying AI they're kind of going after the more junior roles, which all of us had to start somewhere. We all started in a junior role somewhere. And those tasks they're trying to automate, streamline as much as they can. It's a double-edged sword for the company long-term though, because now you have no pipeline of sort of leaders that you're building because you aren't educating anybody, you aren't training anyone, you're relying on the AI. So I think a couple of things come to mind. I think younger folks today probably have the ability to learn a wider breadth of topics due to AI. You can learn pretty deeply, pretty quickly if you think about how to prompt appropriately, but you can learn about more breadth. I think that's something that a lot of folks that I've encountered in my career do not do. They don't ask, well, how does this fit into the bigger picture and why? And so they just kind of do their day-to-day job without really understanding how does that fit into the overall story. I think the sooner you can understand how does your role fit into everything else, the sooner you can say, hey, there might be a better way to do this to achieve that goal that you're really going after over here. I think offering up solutions, recommendations, being willing to listen when you're not right, or being willing to advocate when you're convinced you are, it's a good kind of double-edged sword to kind of play with. That I encourage a lot of young people to don't be scared of senior people. They're busy, so make sure you don't waste time, but don't be afraid to approach them and have conversations. I used to do a lot of lunch bets on purpose and lose them on purpose. They're the loser would have to buy the winner a lunch. That was great. That was a great way to just kind of have some conversations with folks more senior. You learn from them and then get an hour of their time just to talk about topics that are kind of relevant on their mind.
Yeah, I love it. What's the most rewarding thing that's happened in your career?
I've worked with a variety of folks that I've helped elevate and promote along the way. I would say that when so there's this Gallup survey that's done around all these companies, and they're really trying to understand engagement from each employee, because engagement is a high indicator of long-term performance of the firm.
Right.
And I took that very seriously. I know it was a little bit of in the beginning part of my career, I'm oh, I thought the survey is just so annoying. But as a leader, it was good to be able to look into that lens of well, how is my team thinking about this or that, or are they getting the information they need from me and from my management team above me? And I had some eye-opening moments, but I was striving to have a highly engaged team that understood why we were doing what we were doing, had a voice to change the way we were doing something if they needed to, and then ultimately was very accountable to the work that we did. So we had a 100% score on my engagement last year, which is huge. And why that matters is I was able to then point to my leadership team and say, hey, I have 3 people that are ready for promotion, ready for next level. We need to find them new homes. And we accomplished that for 2 of them immediately, and a third was on their way, and she's now into a new role as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I think elevating people, helping them understand their blind spots, getting them to perform at a higher level, and honestly, a lot of people have this self-doubt that limits them for absolutely no reason at all.
Right.
They're scared to ask for it, they're scared to pursue it because they don't want to be told they're not ready. The answer is you're not ready, but you're never going to get ready if you don't go do it. You got to have to do it to earn it. It's weird.
100%.
Yeah.
What about your best failure or challenge that you've been through?
So I can't talk about some of the regulatory stuff I worked on at Wells, but there.
Sign an NDA.
What's that?
I'll sign an NDA.
Yeah. I would say that you have to sometimes make short-term decisions that are not good for the long term. And I think when you do that, you need to be extremely eyes wide open and transparent to folks hey, in a perfect world, we would optimize for a long-term decision, not a short-term one. So here's the trade-off we're making to the long term if we do this. Mm-hmm. It'll help us now, but we have to have either an exit plan ready in mind that we can now go back and re-achieve that long-term vision, or recognize we're burning a bridge to the ground. Is that something we really want to do here? I think we made some short-term decisions that a decade from now are going to be dang, we gave up a really good market position, or we gave up a really good profit channel because we were under some near-term pressure.
Yeah.
That probably makes sense.
Totally. Any last thoughts or any words for the mentees that are out there? Also, are you going to be at the event on the 26th?
I will be.
Nice. So for everybody back home, Heath will be at our event on the 26th. Make sure to be there. 2 Marinova, the Ivory Room. We'll have JD Nassau, the CEO of Jobs Ohio, that will be giving a speech. We'll have Janelle Coleman will be giving a speech, Matt Scanlon, and Tom Ryan, head wrestling coach of OSU. We'll see you guys there. Any last words?
Yeah, so I think if you are in the corporate world, you're in a team setting, you should make sure you have a really good understanding of what the requirements are for your role. And you should sort of ask for each of those requirements where you are landing from a performance perspective within them. And if you're short on anything, you should ask, okay, what opportunities can I have to demonstrate I have that ability? Or what could I be doing better to get there? Anything that you're ahead on, you should be asking, hey, what are the stretch opportunities I can get to continue growing that skill, or is there more I can be doing? That does two things. One, it helps you get feedback for where you're coming up short. Two, it helps you understand what you're really good at. And then actually, I'll add a third. It also kind of puts you on the radar for the leadership team to go, hey, this person wants more for themselves. Let's help them achieve that. And you'll start getting assignments that really are outside your career set because it's setting it for the next role. So there's some level of patience that you have to have in corporate America to kind of advance your career. Even though you might be ready for something, the rest of the people haven't really caught on to that for about a year. It takes a full year for people to go, oh, wow, they really are like kicking ass. This is great. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much. Outstanding to be able to meet you in person.
Likewise.